we'll kick it off. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? We're pretty virtual today, so full disclosure there, folks, online. Obviously, we've closed down, but we're still running a lean and mean ship here. Still take care of everything for everybody as business continues. So this is our first time trying it a little more virtual. So just bear with us if we have some transitioning issues or whatnot. So all is good. All right. Who's got something fun online? Anybody? We got a few birthdays. We got two other people's birthdays. There's two others. Who were they? I thought on the Greater Midwest Realty page. Happy birthday to you folks too.
How old are you, Joe?
I turned 32 today.
Right
on the bundle. 32 years young today is how old I am.
Browning and Nick Charles.
Kathy Brown and Nick Charles.
Browning.
I apologize.
Wow.
Kathy and Nick, happy birthday to you guys too. Glad to share birthdays with you. It's exciting stuff. Mary's birthday was on Sunday, so happy belated birthday to Mary.
Which son is on Sunday for you?
Our oldest, Jace. So he turned 9. Yep. So it's been a busy birthday month for us too. So all is good. So I get to keep moving for my birthday in the snow. That's my birthday present to me. So we'll take it. Take it as it comes. Folks online, just make sure your mics are muted. We love seeing your smiling faces online, but make sure your face up. Someone online or on the news station got in trouble last week, I saw. So just make sure your face up and mics are muted, please. So thank you for that. Anyone online got anything fun?
I'm just saying hello, and you are young.
Thanks, everybody. I feel old. We're getting there. I got some grays, so we're getting there. We're going to transfer this week's accountability. This is another fun one. Very easy. Since we're on the topic of voicemails, clear out your old voicemails so you don't have your $1 million lead call you and want to leave you a voicemail and it says your voicemail is full and then it shuts them off. And then they say, well, this agent isn't ahead of they're not on top of their game. So clear out your old voicemails. I end up having to do it every couple of weeks because all of a sudden I'll get that same deal and then all of a sudden 2 will pop up. So I'm just as guilty. I will hold myself accountable and I will have it done by the day. I'll be another birthday present to myself. So that's another one. How's everybody doing? Anyone online following? How's everybody doing on the accountability challenges? Like some feedback on that stuff. Hopefully it's good stuff and you're seeing some value out of that. I'd love to get someone online that says they've done everything so far and it's too easy. And they'll come with some better ones. Events coming up. We do have. Go ahead.
If the agents go through this fast, they have the list. So they have the list of, I think, accountability. So anybody who gets these challenges done by, let's say, the end of November. Yep. That they will get a grab and go full gift bag from Greater Midwest. We have some extras and so
we can handle that.
Value gift bags, all the goodies and stuff. And so that's my challenge.
Cool. We can handle that. So crank through all these. If you didn't hear online, if you crank through all these in a faster manner, by the end of November, we'll give you a fall grab and go bag with a bunch of goodies. We got some new GMR hats. We have some bottle openers and wine openers with GMR branding on them now as well in our merchandise bag. The camo, the hats are my design. They're American flag on the back and camo on the front. They say Greater Midwest Realty. So, some people like them. Events coming up. We do have the Holiday Pie Day, November 24th from 8 to 4:30. Email will come out early November. You'll see my shining face on that. Just going over the details, and that's where you'll be able to click in there and RSVP, whether you'd like a pumpkin or an apple. Again, we'll just have them in this main entrance at the Blaine office. And it's our appreciation for all of our agents. So come in, grab a pie on us. It's a big Costco pie, so it's 12 or 13-inch diameter pie. It's massive. You can be the hero at your family's Thanksgiving party. So on us. again, just thank you for being part of GMR. We're grateful for all of you. So, holiday charity events, I didn't touch about the holiday charity events. Nominate one charity of your choice to donate to, and GMR will match up to $50. You must nominate a charity by December 15th. Donation options: if you are writing a check, please make it out to your charity and bring it to the Blaine office, and GMR will send both of our donations to the charity. So Caitlin can be reached with more details if you have questions. So feel free to email her in the email provided. Where am I going? Next up, we got Jerry with the company stats, all the good stuff.
All right, how's everybody doing online? Hope it's going well. Website stats so far in the year, we have 71,000. We're up about 10,000 visitors from this time last year, so that's pretty awesome. Our online search home stats are at 6,000, and we're up about 150 from this time last year. And our company stats, the most important stats.
Oh, sorry.
We've had 779 closings with an average sale price of $297. And now we have our new listings video. Without sound.
Just hum along.
I can sing if people would like.
That's okay.
Come on, do it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
We'll give you a pass on that.
Yeah. I don't even have a radio voice.
Well, everybody is watching these videos go by. I just want to put one stat out there that I just heard today on the news from the Minnesota Association of Realtors, the St. Paul Association, and the Minneapolis Association that sales, new home transactions on sales is 28% up this year from last year. 28%, and that is an all-time high from 20 years ago. So there's no COVID running through any of the home sale stat. That's kind of cool. So I just wanted to share that. So 28% is huge. So hopefully you're all having 28% growth this year from last year. And if you aren't, and there'll be a reason or something, but if there isn't, come see us all, trainers, coaches, and we'll get you out there. We're here for you. That's all I got.
Good morning.
Now we got lender and title updates. Got anything? Terry?
Terry with the title group. Next contestant, come on down.
Terry Rusha with the Title Group, and just a reminder, we are upstairs. Our offices are upstairs. There's 3 of us up there. We're there to help you with your closings. Talk if you have issues or questions about real estate questions about your properties. Please give us a call or stop upstairs, and we'll be able to help you through that. So that's one of the things that we like to see you do, and because you want to make sure you know what you're getting into when you're with your client. So, Terry Rusha with the Title Group.
Thank you, Terry. Next contestant, that'll be me. Talk about Homesnap. So Jerry's you got that video loaded up?
Mm-hmm.
We got just a promo video, and then I'll kind of go through on my phone and share some of the extra cool features with Homesnap.
From the top.
Share the screen or mirror the screen for me, please.
So, you know, that Homesnap Pro, is that like a, that, you have to pay for that, over the pro part, right, or no?
I don't believe so. I believe it's all free. Yep.
That's
I'll get into a couple features. What's that?
It's just, there's a lot more on there than it used to be.
That's insane. Yeah. So I want to show, there's a couple things I really do want to show within that app. Am I ready to share?
You connected to the Wi-Fi?
Yep. There, I got it. All right. I'm gonna go and share the Homesnap app real quick. So there's the app. There's a couple cool things that I was playing around with this morning. First one, just going in a little bit more in depth, that find an agent deal is really cool. You can go to your favorite agents. You can search all of our agents. You can also search for an agent. So let's say we'll just go me, for example. Then I'll search, find me, I pull it up so you can see everyone's stats. You know, there's a couple things that I got to change on there. You can see how many listing sides you've had the past 24 months, how many buyer sides, where they've all been. So as you're across the table from another agent, you can see their experience when you're writing offers, and just kind of know who you're dealing with. So there's a couple more features, analyze buyer sides, that you can get your average purchase price, the whole work. So that's a really cool thing to use. And then going back, you can also create ads for your listing right on this app as well. So it's really powerful. So the very top one, advertise a listing. And let's say I want to advertise this coming soon one on Mason. You click on the listing. It's going to load up. It's going to say coming soon. Google. Then we'll go to next. Set my budget on Google, or you can do Facebook or whatever you want. So you can change the budget on how much you want to spend for that ad. You go to preview. That's going to be what that ad looks like. So on Google, say homes for sale in 55301. And then sure enough, all your information will pop up. The phone number is your direct phone number, so you can get people calling you right from the app. And again, this took all of 2 seconds to do. So let's go back down to 99. We'll go to done. And then set it and forget it. So it's a really cool app to use. Those are just a couple features that I use on it. Again, to find the agent and the leads that you can just do right from that. So I would encourage you guys to really go in there, set up your profile too, because you can share this with your clients as well. And that's that on the Homesnap app. So we'll touch base in the next coming weeks with more features that app has to offer. Let's stop mirroring. Oh, we got a question. Go ahead.
Is it ad free?
No, the ads you pay for. So you set within that, good question, within that ad setup, you could slide and you can set your budget with whatever you want. So whether it's $99 for a week or $300 for a month, whatever you want, get started and do it cheap. Just go $5 and see what kind of performance you're getting on that. You don't have to break the bank with with these ads. But the biggest thing now is you're smothering your market, I like to say. So if you're on Google, if you're on Facebook, if you're on LinkedIn, they're seeing your ads, even for a very small fee of $5, you're smothering your market with your branding. at the end of the day. So that's the easy answer that way. Just go what you can afford. Don't break the bank on this. You know, the Facebook leads, Google leads, I like more than Facebook leads. Mary, go ahead. You got a question?
Yes, I was wondering, when you're setting up your account for the first time, it says create a free account.
Yep.
Continue in Google, continue in Facebook, use email address, or I'm a real estate agent. Which would be the best one to put?
Agent. That I'm a real estate agent. Yep.
Thank you.
And then it'll go to that. It'll ask you for that pro. And again, to Tim's point, I'm pretty sure the pro account is free because you're an agent.
It did look like you said, so I don't know, it looked like there's an ad called get code or something, so I didn't know.
Right, where you can unlock more features or whatever. I mean, the basic account allows you to run an ad and do what you want to do too. I'll just touch base real quick on advertisements. So you have Facebook ads and Google ads as you start to explore kind of if you're doing your own marketing. One thing you really want to be, and this is how I think of it, Facebook is more interruption advertising, interruption marketing, right? So if you're on Amazon, for example, you go and you look at a pair of shoes, now it follows you onto Facebook. So that's the same deal that this is going to do, right? People on Facebook, they're going through their news feed. They're just looking at their general news feed, not necessarily that pair of shoes. So the likelihood of converting that lead on a Facebook ad is much harder. It's in their head, right? They looked at it, but getting them to engage on their Facebook is much harder versus someone going on Google, on AdWords, on PPC, and clicking Blaine Homes for Sale, and then your ad showing up that you can do on this Homesnap app. Your money is better spent on Google in an easy answer type of way. So if people have questions about that, let me know. I'd love to chat about that. I advertise heavily on both, so I know the pros and cons of both of them. And there's a lot of good Facebook groups as well if you search them for Facebook ads and Google ads. We are going to have our speaker join us now. She is virtual. Terry's going to introduce her, and then we'll kick it off for her. So thanks, everybody.
So I would just like to take a minute to introduce Kathy Austin. I've actually known her for 35 years. I actually worked with her when I was at Chicago Title. She is one of the most dedicated people I know to this industry, and has worked in the Midwest region for a very long time. So I'd like to introduce Kathy Austin. She's going to talk about real estate fraud today, and something that I've been reminding you all of at the previous meetings about, to be on the lookout, be aware. And so hopefully Kathy can give you some hints and tools on what to look for with real estate fraud.
Here we go.
Well, I'll go ahead then, as long as you can hear me. Thank you, Terry. And I want to start off with really basic information here, because you always have to start planning.
Here it goes.
So,
do it on yours? Or do you have
starting at
speakers?
the beginning, we need to do the definition of fraud, which I pulled this definition out of the National Association of Realtors fraud policy statement. So this is from your material as realtors, and it is the intentional false representation or concealment of a material fact for the purpose of inducing another to act upon it to his or her injury. So the keys here, it's intentional, and it is the sole purpose of which is to induce someone to take an action that they wouldn't otherwise take. So definition, types of real estate fraud, man, there are a ton. Wire transfer funds redirection is probably the most perilous problem we have in our industry right now. It is truly where people can lose their life savings in the blink of an eye. And not on our part an intentional act, but certainly on the part of the cyber criminals causing it, it is truly a criminal act, an intentional act. There is document forgery fraud in our industry, unfortunately. Some of that has to do with title and documents used to convey title. Others has to do with mortgage documentation. So that's a problem for us. Silent seconds are still a bit of a problem. Silent second being where the seller often agrees to lend the borrower the down payment because they don't have it, and they take what's called a silent second, and all of that is withheld from the lender. That's a fraud on the lender. Watch for foreclosure, rescue, relief schemes to start to pop up again, especially in light of the forbearance that's been in play this year. And some short sales and flipping schemes are fraudulent. Some are not. Some are legit. And then, hopefully inflated appraisals and home inspection scams are down some, but still likely, unfortunately, in our business. So document forgery. This is a big problem for us in the fact that, unfortunately, it often appears to happen in and among family members. The number one most often forged document in real estate is the power of attorney. Unfortunately, sometimes the elder parent or grandparent has already been hospitalized or is already suffering from dementia, and then all of a sudden somebody needs to take action with the house or some other real estate they own, and they don't have a power of attorney, and unfortunately that leads people to forge them. Sad but true. We also have situations where deeds need to be signed, of course, by both husband and wife, and we'll have at times the husband may come to the closing but bring along a girlfriend who signs for the wife because the wife doesn't know the husband is selling the property. It has happened. Sad again, but true. Also, releases of mortgage are sometimes brought to closing, especially if this is a private party mortgage. And if that's the case, they can sometimes be forged, again, to try to trick the title company into not paying off that mortgage, but simply accepting the release that they present prior to or at closing. Obviously, most people can't pay off a mortgage unless they get the proceeds of the sale. So that leads us to at least look at the fact that that might be a fraudulent document. There is more and more lender fraud, mortgage fraud involved. In the statistics that I have recently read was that in 2020, 55% of all attempts at fraud on mortgage applications have resulted in a loss to the lender, where last year it was only 36% of the attempts resulted in an actual loss. So the losses are going up, and obviously people are paying attention. Statements of occupancy is another area where we can see some fraud, where they know there's a benefit to occupying the property, so they'll say that they are going to occupy it when in fact they're not. Any kind of false information like that, obviously a problem for the lender, and certainly for you if you're any part of what they're trying to do. I also added title and deed fraud there outside of a real estate transaction because they pop up from time to time, and one has popped up again, and you'll notice it in the advertising. There's a company called Home Title Lock. Also, they sometimes just use Title Lock. And what they're attempting to do is essentially scare people into believing that someone could forge a deed, file it of record, and steal their house from them. We all know that that is an unlikely and rare event, but it doesn't change the fact that these people are out there scaring these people. And in a way, they're perpetrating the fraud by trying to say that, or insinuate anyway, that they're in a lock on the fact that it couldn't happen to them if they use their product, or that there's some sort of insurance as a part of it, neither of which is true. They're neither a lock nor insurance. They're basically just a deed monitoring service. For $15 a month, people could sign up and have them monitor the courthouse records to see if any deeds are recorded against their property. I think we all know the value of that, and unfortunately the deception that's involved with that. But I did want to touch on it because their ads are prevalent right now. And if, in fact, their ads go away, some other company will come up behind them and do the same thing. This isn't the first and won't be the last. Basically, though, you want to watch for this, especially in situations where it's a second home, vacation home type situation, or a vacant property, especially those that have no mortgage against them, because those are the easiest to essentially file a deed at the courthouse and steal without people knowing it immediately. So that was one thing I wanted to talk about. Another thing is there are still companies out there that are mailing requests to homeowners that say to get an official copy of your deed from the U.S. Recorder's Office, you can just send in, I don't know, the last one I saw was $89. And for that $89, we'll get you an official certified copy of your deed. Well, you can go to the courthouse and for probably $5 get the same thing. So those things are out there, and in your position, working directly with the clients, you have the best opportunity to influence their decision in that regard. So I wanted to touch on those, even though they're not a part of an actual transaction. So with October being National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, the place that I wanted to focus on the most today is the wire transfer funds fraud, which is happening every day and growing. It is also sometimes called the BEC, which is the Business Email Compromise. And what this is, it is a sophisticated scam that targets businesses and individuals that perform transfers of funds as a part of their everyday work. And these schemes usually involve phishing or some other computer intrusion technique where the party, the criminal, the hacker, whatever you want to call them, can get in and steal someone's credentials and thereby influence the remainder of the transaction. So again, the case of the missing down payment is alive and well. Why is real estate such a target for this? Well, it's because we have so many parties involved in each transaction, and the transactions take place over a length of time. Unlike a quick retail sale with a credit card, large sums of money are exchanging hands between sometimes unsophisticated parties with respect to the wiring of funds, and then also with multiple age groups involved and multiple levels of technological experience. So all of that leads to the fact that real estate is an attractive market for fraudsters. So how does it happen? This slide gives you a bit of a look at where the scammer just tries to insert themselves into the transaction from any perspective. What they're looking for is the weakest link. The one person or company, but mostly person, involved in an email series of messages about a transaction who has the weakest credentials, so that they can take over that person's email and insert themselves into the transaction, thereby causing the redirection of the funds at the point when we get to closing and they're ready for that to happen. These criminals are very, very patient. They will sit and watch, monitor the email transaction or message transactions between parties for months, waiting for the words schedule closing to come up, because they know that's when they need to pounce. That's when the money will actually be exchanged for the most part. Now, there's a few of them that will act at the point of earnest money, but it's harder for them to know at that point because it's so early in the transaction. It's sometimes hard for them to penetrate at that point and steal the earnest money, but it has been done. So how do they find out all this information about all these people to try to penetrate? It's really easy, and because there's so much data available online now, with MLS data sometimes online, Google search data, Social media is huge for them. That's why you'll see that this crime has just really skyrocketed in large part. Spokio can be a part of this. And also they'll profile realtors to determine which mortgage company does this realtor generally use? Which title company does this realtor generally use? Because then they have clues into who to go to try to find out who all these parties are. But eventually the email chain will divulge parties to them as long as they're patient enough to sit and wait, which they are. After all, the payoff in a real estate transaction is hundreds of thousands of dollars, typically, versus if you go and rob a bank, the payoff is generally speaking less than $5,000. So they can afford to be patient. The payoff is much better. So what are their goals? Their goal is to attempt to trick the buyer into wiring their funds into the wrong account, the fraudster's account, or to attempt to trick the realtor or the attorney involved into relaying bad instructions either to the title company, to the buyer, or to the seller to wire the money into the wrong account, or to trick the title company into wiring the money into the wrong account. They have several points to attack here, and they use them all. I mentioned the earnest money and the closing deposit from the buyer is the typical target. That's actually where most of the activity is. However, more and more they're infiltrating and taking over the account of a realtor or an attorney involved and attempting to send bad instructions to us as the title company, and then trying to trick us into wiring the money out to the wrong account. Now, where would we wire money to? Well, we wire sellers' proceeds often based upon their request to do so. And in addition to sellers' proceeds, the one that hits us the hardest is they can attempt to trick us into wiring the mortgage payoff, the seller's payoff of their mortgage, to them rather than to the lender who's owed the money. So those crimes are on the increase, and that's a big part of what we as a title company do is trying to discover how to preempt that problem. They've even gone so far as to realize that a lot of title companies get payoff statements from lenders by fax. So they will take payoff statements that they might see in an email message, turn it around, of course, change it to their account information, and then fax it to us, attempting to trick us because it came by fax like it would come from many lenders. They're learning our business and becoming more and more successful all the time. So our motto in this is inquire before you wire, every single time. There's no exception to that rule. This slide shows you from the IC3, which is the Internet Cybercrime Prevention Center, or Reporting Center, I should say. This is the FBI's information. In 2019, now these are not the totals for all complaints filed with IC3, but these are the ones that can be attributed only to the business email compromise. So there were 23,775 victims last year in 2019. The average loss was 74,723, and there was over $1.7 billion lost in the BEC just last year alone. You can see on the graph from 2014 at just over 200,000 to 2019, 5 years later, what's happened in the BEC area. It's an incredible rise and very expensive for all of us. Here's some more statistics from the IC3. In 2018, the adjusted losses were 1.3 billion, which is nearly 5 times more than the second most lucrative form of fraud. Again, why is the BEC so popular? Because that's where the money is. In 2019, as I mentioned, it was 1.7 billion, but the largest BEC loss is $7.4 million. So imagine having wired $7.4 million to the criminals. and what the ramifications of that might be. The net is wide. When the losses get high, the net that's thrown out to try to find somebody to be responsible is large, and we're all going to be included in it. All the parties to the transaction, particularly the professional parties to the transaction, will be tossed into the net. 91% of all cyber crimes start with email phishing, and Gmail is the #1 email platform for phishing. So if you use a Gmail account for your email, by nature, you are far more susceptible to phishing and BEC scams than anyone else would be. It's a scary thought, but it's true. 70% of all BEC starts with free webmail accounts like Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo. All those that are free are the ones that they pick on. And why would that be? Well, it's very easy to determine why that would be, because there are no firewalls, no sort of protection set up around them. They are the most widely accepted email addresses out there. And so they're easy to tap into and easy to take over. I did find some statistics for Minnesota. Now, these 2019 statistics for Minnesota are not related necessarily all to the BEC, but they are internet crimes, in that there were 4,388 victims last year in Minnesota, and the losses were over $39 million. So not a small crime in Minnesota, certainly either. So here's some tips to help avoid BEC and wire fraud. The first, and probably I should have listed here, is education. It is truly our job to educate the consumer on this, because many people buying and selling real estate don't do it very often in their lifetimes. And a lot of the baby boomers that are now retiring and or selling off properties to downsize some have never wired money in their lives. Others have always trusted a handshake and never worried about cyber criminals, but man, do they need to. So if you're looking, one of the things to teach someone is to not trust the from name listed at the top of the email address, because we all know that the criminals can change that. They can leave the name the same, the common known name, but change the address behind it. It used to be that you could hover over that name and the email address would pop up. The criminals have figured out now that we have been teaching about that trick, so now that doesn't always work. Sometimes if you hover over that name, it won't pop up the actual sender's email address. So to find it then, very carefully, click on reply and the address will pop up. Don't actually reply to the email, just click on reply so that you can verify the email address in the message. That's a common little tip that we try to stay with them, if not one step ahead, but that's hard to do. Never, as you know, never click on links or attachments unless you're expecting them, or stop and call and verify first. That's where all the bad malware and ransomware is embedded most of the time. And a little quirk about the BEC in real estate is the word kindly. If you see the word kindly included in an email message, that is highly suspicious. Unfortunately for them, fortunately for us, they often try to be overly, conversationalist about it, and they insert the word kindly a lot. So now it's become for us a target word, because if you see that word, you almost have to think this is probably fraudulent. It's that prevalent. So if you haven't heard that tool before, that's a big tool for you. Watch for that word kindly. Obviously, don't use phone numbers or links embedded in messages. Instead, go out and use an actual known number that you have in your contacts, or go to that company's website and pull a phone number. Don't call the one in the message, because that one came from the crooks. And they'll answer the phone and they'll answer your questions, but they'll all be to benefit them. Biggest thing you can teach them to do is slow down, focus on what they're doing, and verify first. Those are the keys. Other things we can do to help stop this crime is use strong passwords and multi-factor authentication and data encryption whenever data privacy is needed for the transmission of non-public personal information. Strong passwords. Can't talk about strong passwords enough. 82% of the data breaches leveraged stolen or very, very weak passwords. So they know there are password, essentially dictionaries out there, giving them access to all of the most common passwords. A strong password, by definition, which I think is insane, but it's true, at the moment says it has to be a minimum of 8 characters. 12 to 15 characters is even better. Many have said 20 characters would be the ideal. A mixture of uppercase, lowercase, symbols and numbers, not spelling out any English word, and not to be reused from website to website. So how do you remember all these nonsensical passwords when they don't spell out a normal word or aren't something that can be easily remembered because they're just a series of letters and numbers and symbols? If you can use a passphrase, this is the easiest thing that I've found to make a password strong that you can remember. Use a phrase, use a part of a poem that you like, use the titles of a book from a favorite author, use lyrics to a song, use the first letter of each word in the phrase, which will spell hopefully a nonsensical word, but you can remember it because you know that your song that you were doing the lyrics from was Mary Had a Little Lamb, or whatever the song is. Add in some symbols and numbers, capitalize. Don't always capitalize the first letter of the phrase. Capitalize a letter in the middle of the phrase. All you're trying to do is make it harder for them to get in. If you make it harder, they will go on to the next person because they can easily find the password. Also, a little tip about passwords: do not keep them even in a password protected Excel spreadsheet if that password protected Excel spreadsheet is stored in the cloud, because all they have to do is break into the cloud to find it, and then they have every password on your Excel spreadsheet. It's sad but true. I'm going to skip ahead here since we're talking about passwords to this particular slide. If you are using any of these passwords, please stop today. Change those passwords. These are the worst ones out there, and I added to this. You can see that there were only 2 new entries in the top 10 this year. And by the way, those 2 new entries were just not in the top 10 last year. They were on the list. But incredibly, the worst password out there is still 123456, and it's unchanged for the last 6 years. So now these are not real estate related passwords, obviously. These are all passwords, but you can see how easy it would be if the consumer is using some of these passwords for the criminal to break into the email chain in a real estate transaction through bad credentials and weak passwords. All right, back to multi-factor authentication. That's where 2 things have to be true. You have to know how to get into the email, but you also have to, generally, you are texted a number in multi-factor authentication, so you have to have the cell phone that the number was texted to. It's a 6-digit number, and then you plug in that number, and then you can see the email. Turn that on for every remote device you have. That is the strongest way to protect yourself and your customers. And by the way, it's also a clue, because if you get texted a number that tells you, if you get texted a number when you didn't actually try to log into anything on your remote device, then you know somebody's spoofing you, somebody's trying to play you, and you've just stopped them because they won't be able to have access to the number, but you also know that you've been spoofed, and that gives you a clue to start letting your customers know that there might be a problem. Email, the weakest link. 1 in every 99 emails is a phishing attack. So just think about that when you think about how many emails you get in a day. Some other phishing tactics that are used, particularly with email addresses or domain names. Many times we see the letter O replaced by a 0. It looks the same, but it's not the same, and it sends it. That one letter change can send the message to the fraudster as opposed to where it's supposed to go. We also see the number 1 in place of the lowercase l. Depending upon what font type you're using, that can be more deceptive than it looks on this screen. We also see the Q used for the O, or vice versa. Title and realty are difficult words because they can easily be misspelled, and the I will read right past the misspelling and say, oh yeah, I know, that's my realtor. That's exactly who I'm trying to contact. So I put a couple examples of that on there for you. Also, we see the lookalike letter substitutes where they insert 2 V's for a W, or 2 N's for an M, or an R and an N for an M, or a Q for an O again. All of those things send the message. Remember, it only takes 1 letter or digit change, 1 character change, for it to go to the fraudster. Some display name deception. The most common one would be if jane.realtor at myrealty.com could pop up as Jane Realtor, myrealty at gmail.com. That's one we see a lot, but you can see all these variations could easily send that message to the fraudster. Again, free domains, danger. All right, so what can we do? I intended to bring these with me today. I have these cards which are printed through the American Land Title Association, but you should be handing cards out like, I don't know, like Halloween candy on Halloween. You'll notice that on the back side of the card it says, this is your title company, this is how you contact them. Please fill that out for them. Please give them to your customers so that they know they have legit phone numbers to call, and they're also warned that, in fact, our wire instructions generally don't change, and that if someone is telling them that that's the case, they need to take some steps to protect themselves. Now, as realtors, you would want to do that just for yourself as well. There was a Kansas case, I think it was last year, where the salesperson and the broker were held 85% liable for the loss of the wire transfer funds because it was the salesperson's account that was hacked, and that the fraudulent wire instructions were sent to the buyer from, and they had done nothing to inform or educate the buyer about that potential. And the courts held them 85% liable for the loss, both the broker and the salesperson. So, it's your reputation is on the line, but as well as that, it's a monetary loss and it's a court case, none of which any of us want. So some other potential red flags for fraud, I've listed a few here. Obviously, if the seller is not entitled, the seller you're working with is not entitled, the owner doesn't sign the purchase agreement, if there are alterations to copies, including deletions, used to be whiteout we worried about. Boy, today, we sometimes would love to see whiteout again so that we could tell it was altered. It's harder today to find it. Use of a particular appraiser or home inspector can be a sign. We will compare handwriting between documents as well as within a document when we're looking for potential fraud. Again, a clue for you as well. And not all powers of attorney are fraudulent. I don't want you to have that impression. but many are. So watch it if a power of attorney is involved. Also, relative to email messages, emails from unknown persons, which I know you guys get all the time, but you just have to be really careful to know who you're dealing with. Watch for misspellings still, although they're getting better about their grammar, they sometimes still use odd phrasing when you think of it from an English perspective. So watch for that. Watch for the word kindly. Watch for persistent, urgent requests. That's a sign that somebody with nefarious action is involved. Also, we're seeing unexplained delays in parties being willing to close, sometimes because especially if we are using technology for their closing, they know that what they're doing is fraudulent and they won't be able to pass any identity proofing that we do when we use electronic signature means. And so they'll delay, trying to force us into just sending them the documents and letting them sign it because they want to perpetrate the fraud and they know they can't do it sometimes with the electronic means. So where to report fraud in Minnesota, here are the sources. Cybercrime, you always want to go to ic3.gov, always. They try to tell us that only 15% of the actual cybercrime they believe is actually reported to them because they think people are embarrassed. I don't know if that's true or not, but if you involve the IC3, the FBI, your local bank, often the Attorney General sometimes will get involved in this too, you have a chance at getting the funds back. If you don't involve them, you have basically no chance of getting the funds back. And to get the funds back, you really literally have to act within hours, not days. So that's just critically important, both to find them and to report the fraud. So thanks so much for letting me talk a little bit about real estate fraud today. If you have other topics that we could be of assistance with, I'd be more than happy to help. Are there any questions?
Hi, Kathy. Yes. It looks like a boss had a question. Can you hear me? Hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right. So a boss had a question. He wouldn't understand how someone can transfer the deed for paying off a home without the acknowledgement of the homeowner. Can you clarify on that?
Is that where I was talking about the post-transaction fraud?
I believe so. Yep. It was kind of in the beginning to the middle part. Yes.
Okay. Well, in that fraud that happens after the fact, the homeowner knows that, you know, everything's of record, right? Anybody who's trying to steal from them could easily go to the courthouse, find out who owns the property. They would take and forge documents, either make, if the property is free and clear, make an application for a mortgage in their name, never make a payment, but take the proceeds of the mortgage and steal that, or they would impersonate the owner of the property and deed the property to another party, either themselves, sometimes they're dumb enough to do that, or to someone else, and then attempt to sell the property out from under that owner. That's often why they focus that crime on vacant or second homes, because they're largely unoccupied during at least certain times of the year, and they're not going to have somebody come knocking on their door saying, I'm ready to move into my new house. So it's a relatively rare crime, but you will see people impersonate a homeowner to try to steal from them after the fact. My main point there was that the product that is advertised and tries to scare people about that is not, again, it's not a lock that won't happen, and it's not insurance if it does happen. It's merely a deed monitoring product, which you can monitor if there's any things filed against your house with the courthouse yourself for free. You don't have to pay somebody $15 a month is the going rate to do that for you. So that was my main focus in that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kathy. I think you answered that question. Awesome.
Any others? Yes, document forgery is covered in some title beyond to the post-transaction situation I was describing. In other policy forms, it will not. Title insurance, after all, is set up to be an indemnity agreement that says that if any of these things, including forgery, happened before the date of the policy, it would be covered under an owner's policy. No doubt about it. But the action would have to have occurred before the date of the policy under most policy forms. There is a newer policy form being used in the market today in some situations. Not all companies use it, but that particular form, called the homeowner's form, would actually include coverage for that post closing during your ownership type fraud, which may happen after the date of the policy. So it depends upon what type of owner's policy you have, whether or not there would be coverage. Then you're welcome.
I think we're good virtually.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the offer to speak today. And anything else, like I said, comes up that we can be of assistance, please don't hesitate to give us a call.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
We're all good? Back in. We'll let go 1 second.
You gotta mute yourself.
We're all good. Kathy, thank you very much if you're still on. Tons of good value there. Hopefully everyone online, yeah, some good learning points on all the good stuff that is fraud. So thank you very much, Kathy. Next up, GMR Bucks winner is Kim Loudon for this week. Congratulations to Kim. One other thing too, I was reminded this week, it's Employee Appreciation Week. So everybody online, if you can, I know it's online, but I was on a webinar once and they did this for clapping. So if everyone can do this, and we'll clap online. Thank you to all of our employees. So there it is. And last but not least, we'll leave you with the quote of the week. Success is a few good habits repeated every day, from Jim Rome. So thank you, everybody, folks online. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great rest of your week. I'm going to enjoy moving in the snow. Safe travels if you're out and about. The first snow is always where the crazies come out. So just be ready. If you can stay home, but otherwise, if you have to travel, we wish you safety. So thanks, everybody. Have a good week.